How would you handle it?
A few thoughts. Just pick up on something I was going to say on the previous point. All the comments resonated with me, and I think they were very thoughtful. Particular with the one about the student challenging the classroom. In my particular respect, as someone who teaches future teachers, it does provoke anxiety. At the same time, it's incredibly helpful to me, because we then have a discussion about what we're doing and how we, in educational theory, we can then articulate why an assignment looks a particular way as opposed to another way, and what aims we're trying to get at, and we can have a discussion about the pedagogical aspect of it. So in one aspect, I'm kind of ambivalent about it. I don't want to feel the anxiety, and at the same time, those present unique pedagogical opportunities to talk about teaching and learning, which is something vital to my field. With regard to your second comment, or your last one there, I don't know whether that's a product of using essays. I don't use any essays in my class. We do things, so in the sense of we have particular tasks where they have to operationalize a skill, or they have to they have to create something, or they have to go and do something and report on that. So at no time have I asked students to write an essay for me. And there's two other things. Is one, I have a peer review process in my class. So when I teach multiple sections of the class, student work from one section is sent to, kind of simulating the blind review process, sent to a section of the other class, and vice versa. If it's within the class, we just sit down and we do peer review as a kind of a sense of discussing what we're doing and where we're going with it. And then the latter aspect is that I try to make it public. On one occasion, we've used podcasts, which are available now on iTunes, and so those ideas are public, and the author of those can be held accountable for those public ideas. And in the other sense, they've been published on web pages that we've developed, 3 of them now. So that's the way that I get around issues of plagiarism. It's very clear that what they're writing, a lot of it has to do with primary source material, that they've gone on, they're reporting on something that they've done, or they're coming up with something originally unique that they can't possibly have plagiarized, because no one else has done that before.
In English, at least, writing the essay is still a major mode of the discipline, and we spend a lot of time on this. And in recent years, we have had to be much more attentive to laying out the skills development part along with the regular course material, and to some degree there's a little resentment sometimes about, I'd rather be talking about the text directly. I'm going to have to take, sometimes 15% of the time of the course talking about skills development that they just may not necessarily have. So especially with plagiarism, I talk about the necessity of going out for ideas other than your own, and how to do that appropriately, how to quote appropriately, what happens if you're not going to, and risk plagiarism, and then the follow-through process. And a lot of the time they simply don't know, what the better sources are, how to appropriately integrate them in, and even that moment of fury, when you're reading through and you find something that's been stolen, and I see an hour of my time disappear because now I'm going to have to track it down and write the report, meet with a student, all that. And there is an anger that comes up every time I run across those. And we know from stats that up to 15% of our students' papers, 15 to 20%, are plagiarized. There's the level of stealing is very high, and it's in all disciplines. So it is happening, and it is there. But even then, when you talk to the students, they're often not the malicious thieves that I invent in my mind as I'm marking the paper. There's somebody who was confused or panicked or had 5 other papers and knew they were doing wrong and was trying to get away with it, but there is a real person behind the process who's still going to have a report filed on them, but at least the process can remain humane, as it unfolds. But a lot of the time, some of the issues can be dealt with up front. If we in the opening weeks we talk about the correct procedure within our discipline to handling these resources, and some of that confusion will be. But ultimately, you won't catch them all, and you'll always have a couple of plagiarized papers. that you're going to have to deal with at any rate. It is part of our new academic field. It's just how the students are going to operate for us. It's part of the population we get in. It's part of the workplace that they've come through in high school. They're going to carry with it into their workplace. So
the idea of being, you know, insecure about this sounds good, but I'm not sure who may have said that, and sort of having your boundaries tested as an instructor, it's an intimidating thing, you know. I think the worst experience as an academic is when you feel thin. Somebody asks a question, and you're like, that's something I want to say, but I'm not sure if I should say this or not. That can occur as well when you're looking at work and you're trying to, is this student really smarter than me, or what is going on? I believe, I wish I could think of the program now, but I believe there's a program where you can enter text and then see if something pops up.
Turnitin.com.
Turnitin.com. So yeah,
It's expensive, but yes.
Yeah.
Most universities follow license to it, don't they?
Mainly U.S. universities.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
they are problematic
Yeah.
because the essays you enter in become the property of Turnitin.com. So there's a copyright issue about submitting your student's work to somebody else's data bank. Probably the university you're in will have a policy about using those kind of data banks. Most do have some kind of a process. But they are, you know.
There are things that are there that you can use to investigate further, if you just can't recall that 1994 article.
But it does change your general, you know, you catch a couple of people cheating, and you want to be careful as a teacher about how then you're going to deal with this student in the future, you know, like, because it's not plagiarism. It's not that they're stealing ideas from somebody or that they've quoted badly. It's a trust issue. You want to go into the classroom really believing that your students are honest and forthright and there and want to learn, and when you discover that most are, some aren't, this one isn't, how do you then approach them all or singularly? And you do have to, I've had to become much more self-conscious about reminding myself, they're not all cheaters, you know, or this one is, but hopefully has learned, or this one's in process and hopefully we can get to the stage where they won't be. You know, it can sort of shade your overall experience of a class if you're not conscious about letting that. You don't want to let that lack of trust start corroding who you are as a teacher. You don't want 20 years from now to be bitter, you know, and angry because that process has infected your practice.